Good Monday morning. This is the Mid-Atlantic weather and loud weather update on Hurricane Isaias. It looks like it'll probably strengthen to a hurricane right before it comes on shore. We'll have to see. It's not the best looking storm at this morning, but right now it's got winds of 70 miles per hour. Most of the winds are north and east of the center of circulation. It looks like it's going to come up north and then kind of zip up into New England. These blue areas are tropical storm warnings, and the red here is a hurricane warning because they expect that the storm will be at hurricane strength. Even if it stays at 70 miles per hour, there's not much the difference between 70 and 75 miles per hour. But anyway, something to note there. Then we see tropical storm warnings going all the way down to the north coast of Florida. Then inland here, you see these little yellow areas. This is a tropical storm watch, and want to see if winds and things get up to that level. And of course, you look at the wind areas and gradients here as far as what that would mean in your areas. Okay, zoomed in a little bit here on the Mid-Atlantic area. Here again is your hurricane warning. These purple areas, kind of hard to see. They go all stretch up here into the Chesapeake Bay. These are tropical storm warnings where tropical storm force winds are expected to be experienced within the next day. So in general, here's your cone and the track that is currently favored here by the National Hurricane Center. This track is not the most important thing. The cone gives you a little more sense of what's going on. Now, of note, this morning the winds, if you look at the wind field again, which is that north and northeast, just for some sense of understanding, the western part right here in the northwest part of the storm is where the heaviest rains are going to fall. Then you get severe threats here in the eastern side. So as this track goes up here to the north, wherever you fall on will depend on the types of weather that you really see. East of it is where you're going to see most winds, especially along the coast. That's pretty obvious. But also severe weather like tornadoes and things of that nature are more likely east of the center. Just to the west of the center, you get your heavy rains. And there is a lot of rain in this. Fortunately, this storm is moving along, or should be moving along tomorrow now. There's an interesting interaction. I'll show it on the satellite video of a trough that's coming in from the west that may help enhance some of the winds here in the North Carolina area into southeast Virginia, which is different than what you normally would see as the storm comes on shore. So it just means the weakening of the winds may not happen as fast as usual. Now, one thing I like to do here is to also show when the winds are expected from the system itself. And the most likely arrival times are, you see now here, 2 a.m. up into the southern part of Virginia, and now 8 a.m. around the D.C. area. This is when winds could approach tropical storm force. So that's just based on the movement and the speed of the system itself. And then you see it's moving and racing along because it makes up a lot more distance here than it did down here. That just shows you the speed of the system is actually increasing as it gets involved with that front that I'm mentioning to the west of it. And the biggest risk, as I mentioned before, is the flooding risk here along the track of the storm itself, especially a little bit along it and to the west of it. We could see anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of rain, maybe an area where there could be some enhancement here up in the northeast or in the Maryland and DC area. Maybe there's a chance for 6 to 10 inches of rain. Just due to the interaction of that front, as I mentioned before, could also squeeze out a little bit more rain out of the system as well. So to give you a little more insight into the areas where the heaviest rain will be, you see these few areas where it's got a little bit of an enhancement closer to the 5 and 6 inch areas, as I mentioned, along that track. And you get up to the foothills, maybe 2 to 4 west of 95 into the I-95 corridor. We're looking at that 4 to 6, and then maybe some areas are going to see that 6 to 10, and we'll have to see how things pan out. I mean, tropical systems sometimes set up areas where it just enhances rain over the same area for a longer period of time. So it's just something to watch. Rain's probably the biggest threat, especially as you get a little bit inland and then further west. Along the coast, you get some of the storm surge and other things as a factor, as well as wind. So real quick view here of what the storm surge looks like. This is an experimental forecast here graphic. 1 to 3 inches once you get up north of Cape Hatteras. These southern faces beaches are looking at 2 to 4 feet. And then you get 3 to 5 feet, and then 2 to 4 feet down here, 1 to 3 feet. So you can see that pretty well done. Of note, it is a time of full moon, so the tides tend to run a little bit higher in general, so you can imagine that it's also helping to enhance this a little bit. I don't know if 3 feet will so much be felt in these regions, but certain areas are prone to get waters to back up. And depending on where the storm goes, east or west of the bay or along the bay or whatever, the bay can back up quite a bit of water into certain inlets, even all the way up into the DC area. So tropical storm watches are here in the DC area, warnings into the bay and along the coast. So anyway, just be mindful. There'll be some coastal flooding. And I always like to show the satellite imagery of the storm this morning. You still see some of the convection firing up here in the middle part of the storm, but it doesn't look like the most well-defined storm that I've ever seen. But what this does do is it shows you a little bit of this interaction of this trough here to the west, which is what I was mentioning before. When you get kind of a tightening of the winds between the two systems, you can get some acceleration of the winds and some enhancement. So that's why I was mentioning the winds may not die off as much as they could because of this trough of low pressure, this front coming into the area. And a little bit of an enhancement of the cloud tops again. You can see the system itself and where the strongest storms and convection is firing, and this trough, as I mentioned, that's going to kind of help also kick it to the east. If this thing wasn't coming along, the storm could have had a chance to go a little further west, but it's definitely aiding in kicking that into the northeast, and will accelerate it once they kind of join forces together up into the mid-Atlantic region. Now, I've noted here, just as a look, this is where that heavy rain is really forming here on the northwestern side. But the low to the south of where the sensor circulation, it doesn't look that great. The convection is not really wrapping around the core of the storm itself really tight. That's why, although it may strengthen to just low hurricane strength, I don't see it being a massive hurricane. In any ways, they're getting really, really a lot stronger. So that's kind of one of the saving graces here of the system. I'd say 3 things are working in our favor. 1, this front helping accelerate it. And 2, the storm's not being very strong in the beginning, so that's definitely helped a lot in the system. So anyway, that's what I need to say. And I think in general, we just need to be on the lookout here for heavy rains in the mid-Atlantic. Don't drive through flooded roadways. You never know how deep they are. You can get your cars swallowed up pretty quickly by rainwater if you're not careful. And only 6 inches of water can actually move a car if it's moving fast. The water's moving fast. But what the biggest issue is, you don't see underneath, and all types of things can wash into that water. So just be smart. Know that overnight into tomorrow morning, it's going to get a lot more bumpy as far as the way that things are going to work out with the rain and everything of that nature, especially in my area in the Mid-Atlantic. But I mean, you saw that timeline starting tonight into tomorrow. Things should go downhill. If you're in the South Carolina, North Carolina area, of course, it's going to be sooner. And hopefully you're rapidly ending all your preparation there. Everyone else, clear out your drains, clear up your ditches and things like that to make sure things flow well. Have an awesome Monday, and just be prepared and start to watch your news and your weather outlets for the latest information.